Hello and welcome to another episode of Heal Yourself with me, Sarah Dawkins. We're the podcast that shares real people sharing their own journey of healing to help you, the listeners, to see that it is possible and healing does happen. And today my guest is Gavin Luck-Jones, who is a systematic kinesiologist, founder of Mind for Health Clinic, and he offers treatments and training in Cornwall. Gavin overcame chronic pain from a spinal disease and diagnoses of hypothyroidism and Addison's disease by embracing alternative health methods. Gavin's journey fuels his passion for helping others to find holistic healing solutions at his kinesiology clinic. Welcome, Gavin. Thank you for joining me.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for asking me to come on.
I'm so interested in your journey. Would you like to share with the listeners what you've healed and how you've healed?
So kind of three things really. I was diagnosed with a spinal disease when I was, when I was a very young teenager, and where basically the wedges of my vertebrae grew. Not the wedges, the squares of the vertebrae, how they're meant to kind of grow. They grew in imagine like a potato wedge. They grew in that shape. Which caused chronic pain, and also later on down the line I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism and also Addison's disease, which I can't change my spine, right? They did offer to put rods in there, but you can't change I can't grow extra bones. But the Addison's and the hypothyroidism, I have been without it for, I guess, how long now? Probably about 5 or 6 years. And it's one of those things that they say is uncurable. So it must be curable.
What kind of things did you do on your healing journey?
So with the hypothyroidism and the Addison's disease, I don't know if people know much about what Addison's disease is. Addison's disease is where you don't produce enough stress hormones. So I'm not sure why it was caused, but it's, there are some people that would say, oh, it's because there was too much stress going on in your life. But on a structural level, it's more that just the adrenal glands don't work, just physically don't work. And I don't know when they stopped working because there were so many other things going on. So I was taking medication, and you're told to take it for the rest of your life, especially with Addison's, which is what's called hydrocortisone Alden or Auden. And if you don't take it, you could go into something called a Addison's crisis. And Addison's crisis is like a storm in your brain. I don't really know how to describe it, but I'm not sure if it was really an Addison's crisis. At one point, I did end up in hospital, just kind of sort of like passing out, and I thought I have to take this for the rest of my life, and you're meant to because you could die. It is life-threatening. And what I did was, because at the time I was working for an organization in London called I won't name it on here, but it was a young person's charity where we helped people get back to better emotional and physical health. But it was more or less, I was sort of half working for the pharmaceutical industry. I wasn't directly, but the amount of kids that I would work with that were on pharmaceutical drugs. And during this time, I would guess I had some form of awakening in some sort, where I realized the world isn't exactly what they tell us it is, and started looking into some other things. And this led me to my health, because I was seeing young people that were just drugged up to their eyeballs, and they were given a diagnosis, and a better way to get out of that emotional or physical stress was to change their lifestyle. They didn't really have the tools for that, and we didn't really have the resources for that. As much as I tried, I wasn't the manager, so I couldn't actually change how things were run. So I thought, I'll take control of my own health, because I've obviously got something going on, because I'm taking medication myself. And I can't really say to other people, you shouldn't take medication, because if you're taking it yourself. So I was aware that if I was to stop taking it suddenly, that could potentially be fatal. So what I did was I had previously studied kinesiology back in 2009, and this was around 2015, 16. And I had looked into lots of other therapies, to heal myself, really, to get some advice, because I didn't really know which way to go. And I kept coming across, I had a kinesiology book, and I had it actually signed by Liam Gallagher accidentally when I met him, it's signed inside, and so I never threw the book away. Potentially it could have been thrown out, like moving house or just having a clear out. So I always came back to that kinesiology book. I always saw it, and then one day I thought, look, I'm just going to have a go at receiving kinesiology first. So I called up some kinesiologists, and then went in there with an open mind. I knew kind of what it was about already, but not the depths it could go to. So I had regular sessions with a kinesiologist, and at the same time, I was on the internet when YouTube wasn't so censored as it is these days. There was a guy called Andrew Norton Webber, who I was trying to look him up earlier, and it's just impossible to find anything. Or I did find things, and then when I clicked on it, it said it'd been deleted because it contains hate speech, apparently, although it's actually about distilled water. So what I started doing was I looked into distilled water. I bought a water distiller, and I drank 4 liters of distilled water a day. And I was told that this would cure anything. And I went in, I thought with an open mind. And I was doing the kinesiology at the same time, and I changed my diet as well. So I was literally just eating raw vegetables all the time. That was kind of all I ate. So all those together, within about 3 months, so when I started on this journey, I purposely went and got blood tests for the cortisol tests and the thyroid tests. And I mean, if I don't know where my blood tests are these days, but if anyone knows anything about the biochemistry, and so you've got TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, and that's secretes whatever it secretes, and then it stimulates the thyroid, and then that's how it works. It's a negative feedback loop. My thyroid stimulating hormone, literally, the markers are meant to be between about 1.5 and 4, and mine were like 0.26. It may not mean anything to anyone listening, but it just didn't work at all. And similar to my adrenal glands as well, similar situation. And so they were always like, look, take the medication, it's never going to work. And that seems to be, from now working with people with all sorts of illnesses and diseases, that is sort of what doctors tell people, which is a self-fulfilling prophecy, really, because if you're told, oh, you've got 2 years to live, chances are you'll probably die on that 2-year mark. So there was a conflict in myself, and I was determined, and I think that was a huge amount to it, because we know through the term psychoneuroimmunology that your emotions affect, your psychology can affect your immunology. So if we're living a life of fear, it's going to bring our immune system down. Likewise with anything else, if your emotions are in the wrong place, it's going to have effect on all the other systems of your body. So changing my mindset and being like, look, I wasn't just literally getting the medication and throwing it away. I was like, look, I'm going to beat this. I know it was not cancer, but it was life-threatening if I wasn't to keep taking that medication. So I was like, I'm not going to do this. And part of my, I guess, awakening, like I said earlier, was that like the system is all wrong, and I don't want to be a part of it. So what I did was slowly weaned myself off of it. So I'd cut the tablets in half. I'd always have them in my bag, just in case. And then distilled water 4 liters a day. And some people will say that, oh, doesn't distilled water leach minerals out of your body? Don't you need minerals in the water you need the minerals for your body, for your health, for water? I was just on a blog post about distilled water, and it compares how much we need of our essential minerals, so calcium, potassium, magnesium, and sodium. So how much do you need in a day of, let's say, potassium? 3,500 milligrams a day. In a bottle of Evian, there is 1.1 milligram per liter. Sorry, so not a bottle, in a liter bottle, which means that you would need to drink 3,182 liters of Evian. So if anyone's actually getting the amount of potassium they need from Evian, which they're not, then it's even if distilled water was taking the potassium I needed out of, if the potassium wasn't there in the distilled water, it wouldn't make a difference, because I would need to drink about 3,000 liters of it. So that's just an illustration of how much the minerals in our water are kind of irrelevant. And also, most people are drinking tap water anyway, which contains all sorts of horrible stuff. I don't know what it's like in Spain, but you don't drink tap water in Spain, do you? Because it's awful. So religiously 4 liters of water a day, fully raw vegetables. And I wouldn't advocate necessarily for that these days, to eat raw vegetables all the time, because raw food, if you've got, there's something called your ileocecal valve between your small intestine and your large intestine, and if you're eating raw food all the time, that's going to really irritate that. So I don't want anyone to walk away from listening to this thinking, I'm just going to eat loads of raw vegetables, because that might not be the thing for you. Kinesiology was a big part of the journey, and that's partly why I'm a kinesiologist now, because I went back to that, and within 3 months, I've digressed quite a lot, but I got the blood test before I started on this journey, and within about 3 months, I asked for another set of blood tests, and the blood tests came out in great levels. All the levels were in the right place, within the right markers. So the doctor naturally said to me, well, you're obviously on the right amount of medication. And I said, haven't been taking the medication. And her response was, well, she did ask me like what I did, and I briefly explained in a nutshell. And she was like, all right, okay. Wasn't really like, you'd expect someone to be like, questioning. Wow, tell me more about that. Yeah. Like, we didn't learn that in medical school, or but I guess they're kind of indoctrinated or kind of told like that's their way. It doesn't make any sense to them. And then possibly they might think, well, if we must have misdiagnosed you or something like that. But I don't know. But that's what worked for me. And now, being a kinesiologist, I have worked with people with Addison's, and I've worked with people with thyroid disease. So I probably would be able to know what the kinesiologist did on me in order to get the results that he did. So yeah, it's kind of a lot of different things together, and in the end had an amazing outcome. And then you think, like, because there was always a bit in my mind thinking, but what if it doesn't last forever? And like, I'm here now. I remember when I moved to Cornwall, I lived in London at the time, and I still had the medication with me. I had it there just in case. But I remember being like, I really don't need this anymore, because I've managed to live my life quite normally. Because my symptoms, I guess, from a young age, I was always very tired. I looked like I didn't want to be there. I looked quite withdrawn, and people would comment and say nasty things, which isn't great for your self-esteem at all. And I don't know whether I had it back then, probably not, but maybe it was like on the way there, because on into my 20s, I was still quite, quite tired, quite drained all the time. So it kind of all made sense when they did diagnose me with that. So it was kind of, we like to be labeled. I don't like to be labeled anymore, but a lot of people, they really want that diagnosis just because it's almost so they can make an excuse or explain themselves. If someone's always like, well, Gavin, why are you always so tired? I say, I've got Addison's disease. Well, okay, that's all right then. But these days, I'm not tired at all. I mean, hopefully it's coming across that I'm not that tired, but it's given me a passion for what I do in my job. I don't think I could have the same enthusiasm as I do if I hadn't been through some dark times with those conditions. And it's enabled me to realize that there isn't just one way, which is what we kind of are told, and impart that onto other people.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And can you share for the listeners what kinesiology is and how it works?
Yes. So kinesiology is the science of testing muscles to create balance within the body, in a one sentence. And what it is a lot more than that. It's we are having a dialogue with your body, with your central nervous system. When we test a muscle, it's not an arm wrestle, it's not a competition. It's very, very light pressure. I sometimes just use 2 fingers, very lightly press down on someone. And what that does is, if let's say you're in the kitchen and you put your hand on a hot stove, that would send nervous impulses up to your brain, and your brain would then check various systems in your body, thinking, what's my next course of action? And hopefully it would be to move away from that stove. Similarly, when we test a muscle, it's sending a nervous impulse up to your brain, and then your brain is checking the different systems it's associated with, and then it's deciding, what condition am I in? If I'm in a good condition, then the muscle response will be strong. If it's in a bad condition, if it needs fixing, then it will be a weak response. So different muscles are associated with different parts of the body. So for instance, you've got your quadriceps muscle, biggest muscle, well, it's a group of 4 muscles in the top of your leg, and that's associated with your small intestine. So if someone had digestive issues, we could press on that muscle in the direction that it works, and then it will probably go weak. And then what we can do is we can then apply different techniques to what we call balance that muscle, which will mean that when we press on it again, it'll be strong. So with Addison's and hypothyroid, so there's a muscle here which would be associated with your thyroid, and then there's a muscle
can you just explain where here is for people who aren't watching?
So if you were to do jazz hands, for example, right? So if you're putting your elbows right into your body and then your hands out to the side, that would, when we would push on the muscle, we would put our hand on the wrist and then we would push into the body. So it's sort of like you put your jazz hands out and then we're pushing your hands into the body. And if it was weak, it would then it would indicate that there's a problem there. There's an imbalance there that needs balancing. With Addison's disease, so there's a muscle called the sartorius muscle, and that's very much linked to your adrenal glands. There are some other muscles that are as well, such as the gracilis and the soleus. And what we would do is, so your sartorius muscle is, I don't know if it's the reason it's called your sartorius, but have you heard of the word sartorial? So like when a tailor is making clothes, they will sit in a position where, so they've got their legs like that. So your sartorius is here. And so what we would do is...
sorry, just for people who aren't watching, it's the inner thigh.
So yes, so if you're just listening, then what you would do is you would put your foot on one of your legs, just below your knee on the other leg. So it's almost like a right angle so your knee is poking out and there's a right angle of your leg. And then what the kinesiologist would do is they would push just above where your heel is, they'd push down towards your toes. And if there was a weakness there, it would indicate that there's a problem or an imbalance. We wouldn't like to diagnose anyone. It would just suggest that there's an imbalance with your adrenal glands. Now, when I first went to a kinesiologist in 2008, the kinesiology, I was actually so blown away that's when I signed up to my first foundation course, because I was just amazed with how they can read the body, test muscles, do all. It's quite, I'm quite amazed by kinesiology when I go to see a kinesiologist, and I hope other people are when they see me. But he said to me that, because I was turning up quite tired, and he said to me, I think there's something going on with your thyroid, but it's probably connected to your pituitary gland, and something going on, an imbalance in your adrenal glands. Now, that was 2008, and I don't think I got the diagnosis for the Addison's and the hypothyroid, because I didn't really do anything with kinesiology after that. But I went in about 2011. I went to specialist, and that's when they diagnosed me. Had I listened to the kinesiologist in the first place, then it wasn't that he was diagnosing me, but he was suggesting there was an imbalance, and he could have done some work there and then, which would have rebalanced it, which meant I probably wouldn't have had to go through all of that. But at the same time, like I said earlier, I'm glad that I did, because it's now put me in the position I am. So muscle, we test different muscles associated with different parts of your body to find imbalances, and then we'll correct it using structural techniques. So like rubbing different points in the body. You've got lymphatic points all over the body which get congested, and the role of the lymph is to flush the body out of toxins. It's to cleanse the system. And the problem is, I wouldn't say problem, but with our bodies, we've got blood that gets pumped around the body by the heart, and the lymph is, I think, there's 4 times as much in the body. But the problem is it doesn't get pumped around the body. The way it gets pumped is through movement, exercise. A lot of us are living stagnant lives compared to what we did like hundreds of years ago, and it's getting clogged, stagnated. So by rubbing different points, and there's different lymphatic points that are associated with different muscles. So I'll talk about the thyroids purely because you can see that. I'll talk about where it is as well. The thyroid is the jazz hands, and then if it's weak, then we're going to rub the lymphatic points here. So it's just
on the collarbones.
Yeah, on the collarbone, yes, second and third rib. And then we would also look at emotions. So different emotions are associated with different muscles of the body. So it's all part of the Chinese meridian system. So adrenals are on the triple warmer or triple heater, and that would be associated with sadness, lack of joy, or anyone taking the joy out of your life. So imagine if you are full of sadness, if you are lacking in joy, that's going to have an impact on your adrenal glands. It'll also have an impact on your thyroid as well, because they're very much interlinked. They're both part of your endocrine system. So if one's not working, often there'll be something wrong with the other one, because the thyroid is it maintains homeostasis in the body. It regulates the body. So then we'd look at working, well, not we, but when I was being worked on as well, we were looking at the emotions surrounding those areas. I had no idea what he was doing at the time, but I would be able to do this now. So it's sort of like I would love to be able to go back in time and work on myself because I'd know what to do. So then we would also look at nutrition. So what we do is we can find an imbalanced muscle, so one that goes weak or it unlocks. We would then place different little pots or vials of nutrition onto the body. And now the way this works is, well, there's 2 reasons why it works. Is anything that's like a living thing that has an electromagnetic field going through it, if you put it in someone else or something else's electromagnetic field, it will either attract or repel. So, like with when you put 2 magnets together, they turn around. Or I don't know if you've ever sat next to someone on maybe the train or the bus, and you've just kind of felt their energy is a bit off, and you just want to get away from them. That's because your electromagnetic fields are colliding, and you're repelling each other. So so we'd put that on the body, and then it would, if it's a relevant supplement or a herb or remedy, then it will change the strength of the muscle to make it go from unlocked to locked, or weak to strong. So you've got the weak thyroid, jazz hands, and you've got the weak sartorius. That was the knee that was bent, and you're pulling down the foot down towards the end of the table. And then you're putting, let's say for the thyroid, you think, kelp and hops. You put that on the body, and then you retest the muscle, and it goes strong. That would mean that would really support the system. Now, what a lot of therapists will do, or anyone will do, is you'll know you've got a problem somewhere, and you'll type on the internet, and you'll think, kelp and hops, yeah, I'll take that. But it could be that you put kelp and hops on the body and it doesn't strengthen. It just stays weak, which means it doesn't mean that it's not it doesn't mean that it's not good. It just means for you, it's not relevant at the moment. It might mean that you need something else. So a kinesiologist will find the right supplement through muscle testing. And then we would also, or kinesiologists would also look at the energy side of things. So we're not acupuncturists, but we do use acupuncture points. So we will stimulate the energy flow within your system. So there'll be blockages or stagnant energy. And there's different acupuncture points that are associated with the muscle and with the organ that we're working on. So we're not just holding any random points. And that's to stimulate the energy flow. We also run meridians. So each muscle is on a different meridian, as I've talked about the Chinese meridian system. And we also want to stimulate blood flow to the muscle and to the organ. And there are different points on the head. So for the sartorius, so the adrenals, there's just a point on the back of the head. So you would just hold here. So you would hold with 2 fingers on each side. So plus and a minus, like you're charging a battery. And that will stimulate blood flow to the organ and to the muscle that we're working on. With the thyroid, it's 3 fingers on the thyroid and 3 fingers either side of the ear. You can only do that one at a time, yeah. And then, so with that combination, so with what we call MCPE, so you're working with the mental, the emotions, the emotional side of things, the chemical, so the nutritional side of things, the physical, so the rubbing the lymphatic points, and the energy side of things, the acupuncture points, the blood flow points, and the meridians. You're getting a really compounded treatment, layer upon layer. So you're getting to the point a lot quicker using muscle testing, because muscle testing is bypassing the therapist, because sometimes I think I know what this person needs and it's not at all. So we're bypassing me and we're bypassing the client, because sometimes a client will think, sometimes we hold on to trapped emotions and they affect our health quite drastically. We think we may have processed them, and maybe we have in some way or another, but they can come up through muscle testing just by recalling an incident, or just even saying a word, because words contain like a frequency or a vibration. So you may have seen the experiment with the ice cubes, where they said nasty words to some water, and they said nice things to some water, and then froze it, and then they saw the nice patterns formed in the water. And then if you think on top of that, we are 70% water. So if we're brought up in a home, or even we're in utero, and not very nice things are going on around us, that's going to come into our system as well. So yeah, so that's what kinesiology is and how it can help. And have you got any questions about that? Did I make sense on that?
For me, it makes sense, because I've had kinesiology treatments before, but hopefully the listeners will make sense of it. Yeah. And if not, they can reach out to you.
Yeah. So I mean, it's quite it's very like I said, layer upon layer. There's so much to it, and it is really amazing when you see it actually in play and you actually have it done on you as well.
Yeah. It's holistic, isn't it? Because it takes all facets and brings them together.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Gavin. And can you share one tip that somebody can take away today on their own healing journey?
Yeah, so a lot of people have sleep problems. A lot of people struggle with insomnia. So there are a few techniques that you can do to help this. So this here is a laser pen. So it's don't want to shine it into the computer, but you can see it's a laser pen here, right? So here, between your eyebrows, what some people know as their third eye, deep in there is your pineal gland, which is part of your brain, and that helps to regulate your sleep cycles. So there is lots of other work we can do on the pineal gland, but just something that you can do. These are like £5-10, and what you do is you just take it and you can shine it in between your eyebrows. And what that's doing is it's acting like an acupuncture needle. So it's unblocking stagnant and blocked energy within your pineal gland. It's not like piercing it and opening it and making it all come out, but it's doing that 5-10 minutes a day before you go to sleep will help regulate your pineal gland and therefore your sleep cycles. And then there's another thing you can do. So this is a torch. So with this, you can shine it in the crease of your knee, so the back crease of your knee. If you shine the torch into your back crease of your knee, that stimulates the bladder meridian, and the bladder meridian actually has points on it that are associated with every single organ in the body. So it helps to open that pathway. And structurally, what you can do is we've got a skull, cranium. It's got lots of bones in it that's held together by things called sutures, and they can become misaligned. So like a tectonic plate about to have an earthquake. What you can do is you can realign these. So one of them is, so you've got your glabella. So what you do is you put your hand on just where I was shining the light, so where your pineal gland would be between your eyebrows, and then your other hand on the other side of your head. So it's sort of like you're just pressing both sides of your head on the back and the front. And then you're just very lightly pushing in and out and in and out and in and out. And you just keep doing that I do it like 10, 20 times. And then you can also, we've got another suture in our head here. So running through the middle, called your sagittal suture. And by pushing it together, you can help to increase the ease that you go to sleep. So it's almost like combing your hair the wrong way, like not doing a center parting, but kind of pushing both hands together so that they interlock and just pressing on the bones of your skull. And then in the morning, you can actually undo that. So you're pulling it apart. So then you're making your center parting, and that'll actually help energize you throughout the day. So closing it to go to sleep, opening it to wake up. And that's I do that every evening, because I wasn't doing it every evening, but I was telling other people to do it every evening, and then I was like, I should probably do this myself. So I started doing it myself as well. Turning off the Wi-Fi will also increase your sleep. Maybe if you don't dream as well, it might bring your dreams back. And earthing sheet as well are really good for you as well. So that's my tip on how to sleep better.
Wow, really interesting. Thank you. And where can people find you, Gavin?
So you can find me on my website, mindforhealth.co.uk. If you go on Google and you just type in Kinesiology Cornwall, it will come up the first one. I am on Instagram, Mind for Health Cornwall. I do have a Facebook page. I don't really use it that much, but you can find me on there if you type in Mind for Health Cornwall. So I do post regular things on Instagram, and I send out quite regular newsletters. I've got a blog on there on my website as well. So do sign up to the newsletter. You can get useful tips like the sleeping tip, or you can come onto send me an email. Let me know how you go on with your sleeping after doing that.
Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you so much, Gavin. That information has been so helpful. And sleep, who doesn't need sleep tips, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your journey with us, Gavin. It's been a pleasure to speak to you.
No worries. Thank you.